Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, welcome in this plenary session. Let me start with some questions. Who introduced the concept of a fuzzy set? Who introduced the concept of a fuzzy algorithm? Who introduced the concept of a linguistic variable? Who introduced the concept of similarity relation? Who developed the calculus of fuzzy relations? Who introduced computing with words? Who got so numerous awards, scientific awards and prizes? Who is the recipient of more than 25 honorary degrees all over the world? The answer is our speaker, Professor Lotfi Zadeh. Please, Lotfi, take the floor.
Etienne, thank you very much for your generous introduction. It's sort of original. Please accept my compliments. Well, let me say to begin with that it's my great pleasure to be here in this wonderful city, wonderful country, at this conference, the conference that occupies a very warm spot in my heart. I've been at many Flint's conferences before, and whenever I come, I see many friends, old friends, new friends. So I feel very good to be here this evening. Now, so today I'm going to talk about the fuzzy logic, a new look. It sounds a little pretentious. So let me, first of all, explain what I mean by new look. It's not new in relation to what you may have heard a month ago, 2 months ago, 3 months ago, but it's new in relation to sort of what happened over the past few years. So it's new in relation to what fuzzy logic is today, in the sense it's taught, it's written about, and so forth. Now, my presentation is going to be somewhat unconventional, and I start now with a preview rather than with an outline. I think that the concept of preview is a little bit more informative than the concept of outline. So I started with a preview, and what's going to happen is this. I have about twice as many view graphs as I'll be able to show here. So what I do is this. I focus on basic ideas, and I will skip a lot of detail. But my presentation is available. Anybody who would like to have my presentation is welcome to do so, perhaps from the organizers of the conference. If not, if you send me an email message or give me your business card or piece of paper with your email address, I'll send it to you myself. So in any case, if you find that you are interested in detail that I'll be skipping, you will be able to, to have a look at my PowerPoint presentation. So that's the sort of idea that I use. So if I see that I skip, it's not because I miscalculated the time, but because by design I use this system. So my presentation is going to be in two parts. One is fuzzy logic, and I will look at it not in sort of conventional terms, but in somewhat unconventional terms. And what does fuzzy logic have to offer, if anything? So let me start with something that I have been using in many of our presentations recently, sort of like this. Science deals not with reality, but with models of reality. In large measure, scientific progress is driven by a quest for better models of reality. Models are based on information. In a realistic setting, information is generally imperfect in the sense that it's imprecise, incomplete, or partially true. Next. So to construct better models, co-intensive means close-fitting models of reality, let's develop an understanding of how to reason and compute with imperfect information. So mechanization of reasoning and computation with perfect information is one of the principal objectives of should be fuzzy logic. That's in typographical error. Okay, so the point I'm trying to make here is this, that basically fuzzy logic is a modelization language. It's a language. Many branches of mathematics are also modelization languages or modeling languages, whichever term you want prefers. That's really what they are. Probability theory is a modelization language. It enables us to talk precisely about some real-world situations. So when we look at various fields like fuzzy logic, probability theory, and so forth, then one way of looking at them would be in terms of their power of co-intensive precision, that is, coming up with a model that is a good approximation to what you start with. That is co-intensive. So co-intensive means a good model. That's really what it means. Next. Next. Okay. So one important respect in which what I'm going to talk about is sort of a new look, is that the concept of co-intensive precision plays a pivotal role. So one of the principal contributions of fuzzy logic is high power of co-intensive precision. Now, today, if you look at the book on fuzzy logic, precision will not be in the index. Co-intensive precision will not be in the index. So here the emphasis is on something that is not a standard part of fuzzy logic. Next. Okay. So now this was the end of the preview. Now, so let's look at the main body. Okay. Next. So the point of departure is the concept of a fuzzy set. That's the concept that Etienne mentioned. So we look at it as the center of fuzzy logic. Next. Okay. So now here what we are going to do is this. We start with the concept of a class. The class is an unprecisated concept. We are not trying to define what class. It is informal, it's unprecisated. But from this unprecisated concept, we derive two precise concepts through precision. One is the concept of a set, and the other the concept of a fuzzy set. So let me repeat again. We start with something that is unprecisated, and then from this unprecisated concept, we derive two concepts. There is another concept that I'm not going to mention right at this point, granule. So basically there will be a set, fuzzy set, granule. Now, if you look at the fuzzy set, you find there are two issues. One is the boundary, and the other one is the number of elements or measure. So what happens is this. So I go on to the next, but here one observation. A set is a special case of a fuzzy set. But a fuzzy set is not a set. That's something that one has to remember. Next. So the basic attributes, boundary and measure. So fuzzy set theory is boundary oriented. Where are the boundaries? Probability theory is measure oriented. That's the basic difference. But fuzzy logic is both boundary oriented and measure oriented. So in fuzzy logic, you look at both. Next. So let's look at precision. How do we preciate the concept of a set? Through characteristic function. How do we preciate a fuzzy set? Through membership function. So we say we preciate through graduation. Gradus in Latin means degree. So associate degrees. So graduation is a means of precision. That's the way we are going to look at it. So membership is a matter of degree. All of us know that. Next. So let's take an example. So we have the concept middle age. It sits in our head, but we want to precision it. So we precision through the use of a fuzzy set. So now when we precision it, we also model. So this could be looked at as a model of middle-aged. Now, it's not in my view graph, but I'm going to differentiate between structural model and parametric model. Structural model says that you're going to use trapezoidal fuzzy set. But parametric model, which you assign some numbers here, you may use trapezoidal fuzzy set, but these numbers may depend on the context. So we differentiate between a structural model and a parametric model. So the concept of a trapezoidal fuzzy set, or TP set, I think is much better than the concept of interval, because here you have gradual transition from non-membership to membership. So I would suggest that we should sort of put aside the concept of interval and use, in most cases, the concept of a TP set, trapezoidal fuzzy set, not triangular fuzzy set. That's a possibility. So we go from one number, that's number, two numbers interval, three numbers triangular fuzzy set, four numbers trapezoidal set. With these 4 degrees of freedom and these parameters, we can come up with better models than we can if you use only interval. Next. Now, let's take another example. Now, what I want to do is to contrast two things. One is an automobile engine. An automobile engine has parts: crankshaft, piston, rings, etc., etc., etc. Those parts have sharply defined boundaries. Take human body. The human body parts, the boundaries are not sharply defined. They are fuzzy sets. That's really what the human parts. Now, this is an example. If you take mathematics, and you take mathematics, various parts of mathematics, you have the same thing. The various parts of mathematics are fuzzy sets. Algebra is a fuzzy set, topology is a fuzzy set, etc., etc. But anyway, so the question is, but where is the boundary? Where does a hand begin? Where does it end? What's the boundary? Okay, now what I do is this. I'll give you 3 things. I give you ballpoint pen, I give you a chisel pen, it's a pen with a chisel point, and I give you a spray pen, miniature spray can with an adjustable spray, precisely defined spray. Now, which one would you use to say this is the boundary? I think that you'll agree with me that the most realistic one will be this one. This is what people would use without knowing anything about fuzzy logic. So if I gave you these 3 things, you will not use a ballpoint pen. And that's the equivalent of using two-valid logic. You will not use a chisel, which is equivalent to whatever you want to call it, intervals, but you will use fuzzy logic. And now this fuzzy logic, if you use this and that, takes care of type 2 also. So you mark points again with a spray pen. Now there is a 4th choice next. And that is spray pen with adjustable, unprecisated pattern. And that will be extended fuzzy logic that I'm not going to be talking today. So what is most realistic? Putting this aside, fuzzy logic. So this is why fuzzy logic has a high power of cointensive precision, really. It's a good modeling language because it enables you to come up with a more realistic model that you can come up with if you use ballpoint pen. So in fuzzy logic, you write with a spray pen. That's really what you do. But it is a spray pen with adjustable patterns. So you can make it as fine as a ballpoint if you wish. But you know what that pattern is. That's fuzzy logic, roughly. And I think that once you explain it in those terms to people who know nothing about fuzzy logic, they begin to say, oh, now I begin to see why fuzzy logic helps to precision. but precision co-intensively as a realistic model. Next. Okay. So, but then what happens is this. Most of real-world concepts are really fuzzy concepts. It's not just body parts and not just branches of mathematics, but most things are fuzzy. To come up with co-intensive precision, you have to use fuzzy logic. That's the point. You can precipitate, and people do that all the time, but the definitions are not co-intensive. Today, we are faced with a crisis, financial crisis. The concept of a recession, you see very frequently. The official definition of recession is two-valued. If there is a decline in GDP in 2 successive quarters, then you're in recession. If not, you're not in recession. That definition is precise. It's not co-intensive. It's like marking the boundary of a hand with a ballpoint pen. Recession is a matter of degree. You have to use fuzzy logic to define recession. And in particular, you have to use graduation. That is what we should do, we have not done. Next. So let's look now at fuzzy logic with greater detail. Now this is different from my earlier things on fuzzy logic where it says something like that. Here at the center is the concept of a fuzzy set, at the center. Then we have facets, logical, set theoretic, epistemic, relational. Now, so you start with this and you move in different directions, you see? So what happens then is the following. Next. 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 Okay. Before I show that, let me just say this. I think that it is good to do that, to differentiate between applied fuzzy logic and theoretical fuzzy logic, the way we do it in physics. Applied physics, theoretical physics. Now, so if you consider these 4 facets, relational and epistemic is applied fuzzy logic, and set theoretic and logical, that would be theoretical fuzzy logic. Now you can go directly to here. In other words, if you teach a course on fuzzy logic to engineers or to people who want to use fuzzy logic, you don't have to go here. You can go directly from here to here. Next. So what happens then? You start with a fuzzy set, but then you use FL generalization. You take a theory T, or it could be an algorithm, could be any other thing. In that theory, you replace the concept of a set with a fuzzy set. That's what you do. And so that results in fuzzy T. Now it could be wholly generalized or in part. That FL generalization is also a matter of degree. But in any case, so you start with a fuzzy set, you move in different directions. By different directions, that means a direction ends on some theory. So if you go back to what I had previously when I said logical facet, that means you are generalizing things that fall into logic. If you move into set theoretic facet, you generalize various theories, concepts, and so forth that relate to set theory. So that's why you have these 4 principal facets. But fuzzy logic, could you go back? Back. Okay. Fuzzy logic is the whole thing. It's the whole thing is fuzzy logic. This is fuzzy logic in the narrow sense. It's the logical facet. Fuzzy logic is the whole thing. So now you want to stress that. Let's go forward. Next. Okay. So a facet consists of FL generalizations of a theory or F generalization of collection of related theories. See, those are the principal facets. Logical, set theoretic, epistemic, and relational. Next. Now, I'm going to skip this because you heard it many times. Next. Next. Okay, now there is one point here. If you have 2 words, M and X, then generally M specializes X, like red apple, tall man, convex set, etc., etc. So what precedes XM modifier is a specializer, but fuzzy is a generalizer. It is not a specializer. That's the important difference between fuzzy and some other things. Now, so when you have fuzzy T, when you generalize, you have fuzzy topology, fuzzy measure theory, fuzzy control, fuzzy game theory, etc., etc. Now, there are many misconceptions about fuzzy logic. Many of them stem from the fact that fuzzy is interpreted as a specializer. It is not a specializer, it is a generalizer. So whatever you attach fuzzy to generalizes that. Now fuzzy is not the only one. There are other things that have the same form. For example, interval arithmetic generalizes standard arithmetic. So we have to realize that there are certain terms that are generalizers and certain terms that are specializers. Next. So, again, in this new look on fuzzy logic, the cornerstones are first graduation, granulation, precision, which is the most important one, and generalized constraint. These are the cornerstone. Next. So, let's look at graduation. As I said in the preview, graduation basically serves as a means of precision. We preciate a concept when we graduate that concept. So we graduate middle-aged. We graduate the concept of earthquake via the Richter scale. That's graduation. We did not graduate recession. We did not graduate civil war. We do not graduate mountain. But if we want to make them more precise, we have to use graduation. Next. So now look at granulation. So the concept of granulation is the opposite of graduation. It is a means of imprecision rather than precision. So the concept of graduation is a concept that is in multivariate logic, but the concept, except in multivariate logic, is applied to truth, mostly truth, to predicates and so forth. In fuzzy logic, anything can be graduated. Well, anyway, but granulation is unique to fuzzy logic. So it is inspired by the way in which humans deal with imprecision, uncertainty, and complexity. Granulation serves as a means of imprecision. Next. Next. So here's the notation. Now, okay, there is another one. So now we differentiate between granulation that is forced and granulation that is deliberate. Forced granulation means that you don't know really the precise value. Somebody asks you how old is Mary? Well, you say young because you really don't know how old she is. Deliberate, when you do know exactly when Mary was born, but you say young because you feel it's unnecessary to be more precise than that. Okay, so so you use deliberate granulation where there is a tolerance for imprecision. You reduce precision because precision costs money. That's the basic principle. And so, so granulation values, granular values are employed to reduce cost. Next. So in fuzzy logic, everything is or is allowed to be granulated. Now, granulation takes a variety of forms. Now, the starting point is the concept of granule. The concept of granule, then, again, we differentiate between informal definition, unprecisated, and precisated. Unprecisated, it's a clump of elements drawn together by indistinguishability, equivalence, similarity, proximity, or functionality. Body parts, we granulate body parts. Now, so indistinguishability is something that my friends here in Spain have been working on a great deal. Professor Trias and others have written quite a bit about indistinguishability. But anyway, so now we take the concept of granule, but then we precipitate it. We precipitate it through association with a generalized constraint. I'm not going to talk about generalized constraint at this point, but I just want to say that when we make a definition, we start with an unprecipitate definition, which gives you some idea what this thing is, but then we precipitate it. That's the sort of a thing that we'll use in most cases. Informal, unprecipitate definition, followed by precipitate definition. Okay, next. So now here we differentiate between partition. In rough set theory, that's what's done. So rough set theory basically is concerned with granulation, really. So graduated granulation is where the boundaries are fuzzy. But then more generally, we have a system of granules. Next. So this is not a partition. So this is a system of granules. Now, so next. A linguistic variable example. Now this is partition. Age is young, middle-aged, old. That's partition. This is a system. Age, young, middle-aged, old, very young, not very young, quite young, very young, etc., etc. That's the concept of linguistic variable. So the concept of a linguistic variable corresponds to a situation where you use a system of granules rather than a partition. Next. So I use the term singular, not in the usual sense, like different sense. Singular value of x, point value of x. So singular value, granular value. Unemployment, 7.3%, that's singular. High, granular. Probability, 0.8, singular, so forth. So now earlier I said granularity inspired by the way in which humans deal with imprecision and complexity. That's what humans use all the time. They use granular values. And when we compute with granular values, we have granular computing. And Professor Pedrich, who is here, hopefully, he has written a book, and now more recently, Handbook on Granular Computing. Granular computing is closely related to computing with words. It's not the same thing, but closely related to computing with words. Granular computing is going to become more and more and more important because it generalizes interval analysis, rough set theory, and many other things. Now, next. So, as I said earlier, a granular value is preceded as a generalized constraint. Now, a granular value of probability is a granular probability. So these are granular probabilities. Likely, not likely, unlikely, and so forth, you see. So the concept of granular probability is more general than the concept of fuzzy probability, because the concept of a granule is more general than the concept of a fuzzy set. A fuzzy set is a special case of granule. Next. So now we can apply granulation to objects of arbitrary complexity. And quantization is a special case of granulation. Next. So this is something that all of you are familiar with. Quantization, granulation. Now this is a partition. Okay. So granulation may be viewed as a form of summarization or information compression. So when we use young, middle-aged, old, then we are summarizing or we compress information. Now, in the case of fuzzy sets of type 2, I think that we have Jerry Mendel here, who is the godfather of fuzzy sets of type 2. Take it as a compliment. Yes, okay. Okay, fine. So what happens then is this. On the one hand, you move in the direction of greater complexity because membership values are fuzzy sets. But on the other hand, you use linguistic variable. In other words, instead of having a continuum, you have a few linguistic values: high membership, low membership, medium membership. So you make up for increasing complexity in one dimension with lower complexity in another dimension. And the combination is fine. So it's in this sense then, that's what I have in probability theory. And the term that I'm not going to be showing in the yoga is second order uncertainty. So if you have uncertainty about uncertainty, you're dealing with second order uncertainty or uncertainty squared. And what we need really is theories of, for example, decision making under second order uncertainty squared. We don't really have decision theories that are realistic in that realm. Now, there's another thing I want to mention. Now, sometimes the word vague is used in the same sense of fuzzy. In the literature of logic, the word vague was used in the same sense of fuzzy. Now, I always said that fuzzy and vague are not the same concepts. Now, if you use the concept of second order uncertainty, you begin to see what happens. Vague is second order uncertain. Vague is second. When you talk about something is vague, second order uncertainty. That's really what happens. So when you use it to describe first order uncertainty, it's not really the right use. It should be used when you have second order uncertainty, not first order uncertainty. Next. So, but then you can granulate anything. You can granulate a function, in which case you have this linguistic description, fuzzy if-then rules. So notice what we do is this. We take this, we granulate it, but then we precision the words. That's what we use. So it is granulation followed by graduation. And this is what I call fuzzy logic gambit. And in most applications of fuzzy logic, that's what's used. Granulation followed by graduation. So we begin to develop a little bit of understanding what's involved when you use fuzzy if-then rules, linguistic variables, etc. We use granulation followed by graduation. Next. We can use it with probability distributions. This is granular probability distribution. This is granular valid probability distribution. Dempsey-Schaeffer theory falls into this thing in here. Next. Now, so fuzzy logic gambit is deliberate granulation followed by graduation. So I take this function and I describe it in these terms. So I summarize it. It's summarization. And now notice one thing, that in most cases when we make decisions, we use summaries. When we want to buy something, we look at catalog description. When we want to hire somebody, we look at resume. When we want to decide whether to marry somebody or not to marry somebody, we look at summaries and so forth. In almost every case, we use summaries. That's really what we do. So that's why, really, why fuzzy logic gambit is used, because you summarize, you make it cheaper, and then you graduate, which makes it possible to compute with summarized representation. Next. So, but now let's look at the concept of precision and cointensive precision a little bit more closely. Next. So, precision, has always played an important role in science. But, so mathematics is a quintessential example of what may be called a meaning precision language system. Now, I differentiate between language and language system. A language is simply description. Language system is something that makes it possible to use deduction. So it's description plus deduction, it's language system. So mathematics is a quintessential language system. Next. So this is explanation of the difference between language and language system. Prolog is a language system. A natural language is a language. It's not a language system. Next. Fuzzy logic is a language system. Next. Okay. So.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I pressed the N instead of the.
Okay. That's okay. Okay, thank you. You pressed the wrong button. Thank you. Okay, next. Okay. Now, so you find that most real-world concepts are really imprecise. Recession, civil war, very slow, honesty, arthritis, etc., etc. These are just single things. Now, these are propositions. It's like to be born tomorrow. Humans use these things all the time. They understand. Next. Or commands. Next. And sometimes it appears to be precise, but in fact it isn't. Checkout time is 1 p.m. I use this example. Sometimes in Germany, checkout time 1 p.m. means 1:00. In Sweden, this is perhaps 1:00. But in India, I hope I'm not offending anybody, or in Iran, it says checkout time 1 p.m. means today, don't worry, sleep well. Tomorrow, we'll talk about it, don't worry. So, it's fuzzy concept. Now, so when you see all these precise numbers, all of them have some elasticity. Elasticity varies. In some countries, there is a lot of elasticity. In Italy, I'm good looking at my good friend Piero Vanessoni. There's quite a bit of elasticity. In Germany, there is much less elasticity. So every country should be judged elasticity index. Every country should be associated with elasticity index. Okay, next. So, suppose I ask you, now, so let's agree then, 65 miles per hour is really a fuzzy concept. It's not precise. How can you precipitate it? Suppose I say, do it, but don't use any imprecise numbers and no probabilities. Can you do that? No. I say, okay, use imprecise numbers, but no probabilities. Cannot. Use imprecise numbers and only precise probabilities. Cannot. You have to use both imprecise numbers and imprecise probabilities. You have to use fuzzy logic. You cannot really precipitate the meaning of 65 miles an hour using bivalent logic and probability theory. You cannot do that. You see, because intrinsically precise and imprecise in a way that does not lend itself to co-intensive. You can come up, sure, to valid logic, you can, but it will not be a co-intensive precision. That's what it will not be. Next. So if this is the problem that we encounter with 65 miles per hour or 100 kilometers per hour, what about arthritis? What about recession? Reasonable doubt, causality, near, just go on and on and on and on. All of these terms in ordinary language are unprecisated, you see. But to precipitate them co-intensively, not just somehow, you need fuzzy logic. And this is what fuzzy logic is a necessity, it's not really an option. You can get by, of course, with using bad models. You can take a nonlinear system and model it using a linear system, but it's not going to be a good model. So modeling a fuzzy concept in terms of bivalent concept, it's like modeling a nonlinear system in terms of linear components. Not a good model. Next. So then what we have to do then is to take a little bit closer look at the concept of precision. Now, I started talking about it a few years ago. First time at the conference in Berkeley, my good friends, Irina Perfilieva and William Novak was there, you may recall. I mentioned the concept of precision, but at that time it was just the beginning of it. By now, I think that perhaps we're not there yet, but pretty soon we'll be able to talk about theory of precision. And I'm pretty sure in 1, 2, 5, whatever years, we'll have a book under that title published in Professor Kopchik's series, Computational Theory of Precision, yes. And so let's take a little closer look. Now, what has not been done in science, to my knowledge, is differentiation between precision in value and precision in meaning, altogether different concepts. Next. So, X is in the interval something something. It is precise meaning, but imprecise value. Now, many of you have heard my lectures already, but some of you perhaps have not, so that's why I'm talking about here. So this is a very important distinction. Now, in fuzzy logic, you are concerned with meaning precision, not value precision. So when I say fuzzy logic has high power of precision, people think it is value precision. No, it is meaning precision. What it means that if you tell me that so-and-so is young, then young will be preciated, but you will not be told that so-and-so is 25 years old. So, and that is the key point, the difference between value precision and meaning precision. So, now sometimes people say, you know what, it's unrealistic. You take some middle age, you put trapezoidal, so forth, but that's the way models are. Every model is unrealistic, you see. So, by construction. Next. So, next. I'm going to be skipping more and more view graphs now. So, but then we differentiate between precision, which is human-oriented, and mathematically oriented. So, bear market means declining market. So you can say, well, declining market, that's dictionary definition. Or you can have an official definition, 30% decline after so many days and so many decline after so many, that's the official definition of bear market. This definition is a mathematical definition. This diction is not mathematical definition. But this mathematical definition is not co-intensive. It is a Babylonian definition. It's not co-intensive. Next. So here are some of the basic concepts. That's more or less sort of a terminology. Precision end is what we are precisating. Precision and the result of precision. This is precision, it's an operation. Co-intension is the degree to which, qualitative measure, the meaning of precision agrees with the meaning of precision end. That's co-intension. It's a qualitative measure, because it's very difficult to say, well, how close is the meaning of one thing to the meaning of another thing. So intension is attribute-based meaning, and extension is name-based meaning. And the reason why I use the term co-intension, because intension means meaning in logic, you see. So proximity of meanings. Next. Okay. So modelization is a form of precision. Precision is a model. So you see various connections. Now, MH precision is H model, because in the case of models, you deal really with meaning, you see. So it's not necessary to say MH, sufficient to say H, meaning model that is for human consumption. And M model means mathematical model. That's what we mean. Next. So as I said already in the previous scientific, in larger scientific, is based by very larger probability theory. So in many, many cases, that's what the language that we use to define various concepts. But the definitions are not co-intensive. The definition of stability, Lyapunov definition of stability is not co-intensive. The definition of risk in probability theory decision analysis is not co-intensive. One definition after another, not co-intensive. Next. Okay, so I'll skip that. Next. 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 Okay, hold it. Go back. Go back. Go back. Okay, now of course the question that has been asked from the very beginning, how do you define membership function? Where do you get these things from? Well, there are different ways. One is declarative. In other words, I tell you, young means this. Middle age means this. This is declarative mode. There are other modes that I'm going to mention very briefly, which involves elicitation. But this is what's done in most applications of fuzzy logic. Honda, fuzzy logic transmission. The designer says hi, close, whatever. These are membership functions. The designer comes with these rules. These rules the words are precisiated. That's the way the words are precisiated, graduated, precisiated. And then you can compute. Machine understands then what they mean by if speed is low and torque is high, then do something. That's the basic idea. So this is declarative. But there are other modes in which you elicit grade of membership. But in any case, humans have this capability, this remarkable capability to put things on a scale. Humans are much better at doing that than assessing probabilities. If you have dinner at a restaurant, and I ask you on the scale from 0 to 1, could you tell me how much you were pleased by what you ate? People won't have any difficulty putting a mark on the scale. They may use ballpoint pen, they may use a spray pen, but anyway, people can do that. But if you ask what is the probability that Obama will win the election, I hope it's high, but you can't tell really. In other words, people are not in a good position to come up with some numbers, saying 0.58 or whatever. People are not good at it. So to some degree, in fuzzy logic, we take advantage of the fact that humans are so good at rank ordering perceptions. They're very good at it. Next. So we can do that. But when we can perceive this concept, temperature. Now, this is what is normal temperature. Well, we use trapezoidal fuzzy set, and then we use parametric. What means fever? What does mean high fever? So when we write a book dealing with some medical thing, and we say high fever, then we precipitate it. We say this is what we're going to make by high fever, you see. So some committees, some people say this is the way. And once you have done that, then you can automate some treatments. Because you have rules then. If fever is high, then do this. Just as in the case of Honda fuzzy logic transmission. Next. So here I discuss this elicitation, but I'll skip that. Next. Next. So what happens is this. You say approximately something. Now you want to precipitate approximately some number. Well, you can do it in many ways. Now, in bivariate logic, say A, interval, probability distribution, these are standard things in bivariate logic. What fuzzy logic does, it adds to these ways. Next. It says this is okay, but you can use trapezoidal fuzzy set, you can use type 2, you can use fuzzy probability, you can use all kinds of other things. So what it says is this, that to a given precipient END corresponds many precisians, and each of them has some co-intention in relation to what you have in your mind. It may be that this is a better thing than an interval, maybe you prefer an interval, whatever. In any case, you have a measure of the degree to which something approximates to what you start from. Now, generally, the thing increases. In other words, you can come up with better and better models, but they will become more complicated. Next. So here is what happens. Single number, interval, trapezoidal fuzzy number, co-intention increases, complexity increases also. But as I said earlier, in the case of computing with words, you can compensate for that by using linguistic variables. Next. So, next. Next. Okay. Now the question arises, given a proposition or a concept, how can it be M precision? M means meaning, and second M means mathematical. How can it be M precision? The theory is not complete unless you can show how to do it. Next. So that's where the concept of generalized constraint comes into the picture. So what we're going to do then is this. We have the concept of generalized constraint. Next. 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 So basically, generalized constraints are needed to deal with elasticity. That's really what they're needed for. And we have not just one constraint, we have a family of constraints. And R is an indexical variable. Next. So we have a family of constraints. I'll go through it very quickly because many of you have heard my discussion of generalized constraints. So we have the concept of a generalized constraint. And it is the kind of thing that we are going to use to preciate the concept of granule. So when they say we have a granule is precisiated through generalized constraint. You see, that is what a granule is, sort of something, but I'm not saying fuzzy set, but something. Call it class, whatever it is, of elements, but we are precisiating it through generalized constraint, not through membership function. Next. So we have all kinds of things. This is the principle. Possibilistic, probabilistic, heuristic. Next. Next. I'm going to skipping it. Next. Okay, but here is very important. What we are going to do then is this. We are going to say that meaning can be precisiated through the concept of generalized constraint. That is the most general way of precisiating meaning of anything. It is more general than fuzzy set, more general than probability theory, more general than anything that you can think of. Generalized constraint. Because generalized constraint includes as a special case possibilistic constraint, heuristic constraint, probabilistic constraint. All of these are special cases. So that's what's going to do. So now we have generalized constraint language, which is language generalized constraint. So another way of looking at it to say meaning is precise through translation into the generalized constraint language. Next. So here I have some examples, simple example. Lily is young. Age of Lily is young. Most weeds are tall. This is most. Now notice that this sort of a thing is not done in multivariate logic. In multivariate logic, it doesn't address issues of this kind, you know. Next. So, next. So, okay, suppose that you precisiate the meaning using generalized constraint, but then you have to compute with generalized constraint. Next. So, so usually or generally what is used is the extension principle. Next. So this is extension. The original version was a 1965 paper. It was a simple version. And then later, more complicated version. It's a whole discussion. I could spend half an hour talking about the extension principle. It's very simple. You say, I have a constraint on function of x. What is then the constraint on some other function of x? That is the extension principle that's used in most situations, possibilistic. And here you have to solve a variational problem that I will get to. So to find the induced constraint, you have to solve that problem. Now, we stop once we get to here. In other words, once a problem has been reduced to standard mathematical problem, we don't go beyond it. Next. So this is sort of an interpretation of what happens. Next. Okay. So what we are going to do is this. And that's where computing with words comes in the picture. We have propositions. We preciate through translation generalized constraint language. So these are generalized constraints. Next. And once we have generalized constraint, we use generalized constraint propagation, and we come up with an answer to the question. And that would be granular computing. So these general constraints in general are granules, you see, they descriptions of granules. So that is the basic idea. Now, in computing with words, there is another thing. You know, how do you go from natural language to these representations, which is not a part of granular computing? Next. So what I have then is examples to illustrate how it is done. That's CW. Next. Computing with words. Next. So here's an example. A glass jar contains about 20 balls, and then I asked, here's some information. What is the probability that the ball run at random is neither large nor small? So each piece of information is translated. It's represented as a generalized constraint. And then we have a collection of generalized constraints. This is more general collection of relations. And then we have to solve this system of generalized constraint. And that will be the answer to the question. So probability theory cannot deal with these problems, because probability theory does not have this kind of machinery for dealing with problems of this kind. Let me just mention the simplest problem which probability theory cannot handle. I don't have view graph to show it, but here it is. X is a real valued variable. I don't know what the value is, but I have some information. The information is this. X is greater than approximately A, and X is smaller than approximately B. What is the probability that X is C? Okay, that's very simple. Probability theory cannot handle that simple problem. Now, I'm prepared to argue with you about it, and it's a little bit of a trap in the following sense. Probability does not exist in that problem. In other words, people think that, and this is what Dennis Lindley said. He said, no matter what the problem is, if uncertainty probability is here. I said, no, I'm sorry, Mr. Lindley, Dr. Lindley, Professor Lindley, not so. Probability theory is not applicable. The concept of applicability is an important concept. So every predicate has some applicability. I forgot what is the term that's used in logic for that. I forgot it. Some people perhaps may suggest it. But anyway, if I look at a man, and I said, did you stop menstruating or not? That's like a famous example. Did you stop beating your wife? That question is not applicable to a man. You see? So it's a question of applicability. So, probability theory as a concept is not applicable to that example, nor is it applicable to examples in which you have some randomness. It's not applicable. Just the concept of volume is not applicable to my jacket. What is the volume of my jacket? Can't tell. But anyway, next. So I have many examples. I'll skip these things. I'm skipping because you have to give you an idea of what I'm skipping, so that in case, so you have to decide, are you really interested or not? So next. This, all of them involve computation. Next. Now here, what fuzzy logic has to offer, I will very brief. Next. Go back. No, go back. So basically, it's a paradigm shift, and you add to traditional thing, which is unprecisated words to numbers. You unprecisated words to precisated words, and from numbers to precisated words. You add non-traditional, traditional. And as an example of it, next. This is linguistic summarization. You have a bunch of numbers. You want to summarize it. Linguistic summarization, numerical valued functions. Concept fuzzy then rules. This is what's done in fuzzy logic. Next. Well, okay. Now that's the important point. Fuzzy logic adds to and generalizes rather than replaces. That's a very important point. So fuzzy logic can never be less general, less rich, less effective. Can never be, because you add tools. You never replace tools. Okay, so my time is coming to an end. So let me just go forward. Next. Now this is various concepts. Next, various operations. Next. FL generalization. Now, here's interesting. Now, so we have generalized these things to some extent. Fuzzy set theory, fuzzy topology. Now, interesting is this. If you use Google and you put fuzzy topology, you'll find many more papers than you may think. I was surprised myself. And when I put something, many more papers than I realized involved. Now, so fuzzy probability theory, fuzzy arithmetic, now fuzzy... Now, what I wanted to put it to you now is this. At this point, we can make this list, but this list will be growing with the passage of time. We'll have more and more and more theories which will be FL generalized. More and more and more theories FL generalized. Thank you. Excuse me. Next. So, next. I won't skip that. Next. Next. So here's the summation then. So fuzzy logic is not in conflict with bivalent logic. It is not in conflict with probability theory. It is an addition to these theories. It adds something to probability theory. So people argue probability theory is better than fuzzy logic or this or that. No point in these discussions. Because in fuzzy logic, and I'm repeating it again, merely add some tool to probability. You don't want to use them? Fine, nobody forces you. You cannot force a horse to drink water. You see, you cannot do it. A Bayesian person may be unwilling to do it. But anyway, this is there. You can use these tools. But anyway, so that is very important thing that I want to stress. Fuzzy logic does not replace anything. It adds to the tools that are in existence. I think I'll stop at this point. There's some references next to my own things. I did not, just in case you're interested. Next, and that's it. So I want to thank you, and I want to thank you for giving me an opportunity to talk about some of these issues. I don't know whether you agree with me or you don't agree with me. Perhaps you agree to some degree. Hopefully it's other than zero. Well, in any case, thank you very much.
So, are there any questions or remarks?
Perfilivo usually objects to something, Irina. Speak louder.
Yeah, okay. So, thank you very much for, in my opinion, that was the best talk on fuzzy logic which I ever heard from you. And also, I appreciated very much the distinguish between syntactical part and semantic. But what I didn't see in your presentation is the role of deduction. So, so when we speak about logic, we always have two parts. The first part is symbolical part, and today really we had a lot of new things about that, how to symbolize different things, objects by their meaning. But I didn't hear anything about deduction. Why? So the question is why.
Well, let me correct your perception. I did. Perhaps you were not listening very carefully.
I tried.
That's it. Two phases. Phase one, appreciation and meaning. Then you come up with generalized constraints. Part two, computation and deduction. Now what happens toward the end, I skipped all of the examples I skipped. All of the examples will not aggregate in principle and so forth. I skipped all of that. But it is there, you see. So it would be incomplete without having deduction. It is there. But it's simply, skip it.
In this case, everything
Please
is
accept my fault.
Okay, thank
Yes, usually Irina's criticism is a little bit harsher than
Any other questions? Yes?
Speak a little bit louder.
You mentioned propagation rules. And then you spoke
Let me
about
tell you one thing. Now, there is something that I say now. The old age is the age of discovery. We discover all kinds of new things. Back hearing, back vision, back this, back that. And so that's age of discovery. Okay, that's why I have to do this.
about propagation. And then you mentioned only the deduction rules. Are they the only way of propagation of deduction rules, or there are other ways of propagation?
Well, you see, the principle, rule of deduction in physiology is the extension principle. Now, however, if you look at deduction principle broadly, then everything is deduction principle. It's not the principle of everything. If you look at the special case of constraint propagation and counterpropagation. I think this is a useful point of view, because it suggests that of course, most people say that clear consequence, but people want consequence. What is truth? Instead, I must tell you that the concept of truth is a very complicated concept, To understand truth, you really need fuzzy logic. It's not sufficient to say truth is 0.7, 0.8. It's not sufficient. It's a very complicated concept. But anyway, so the point of this is that I think that one can make a stronger statement than simply saying that, it is the principle, let's say, but you happen to show it really, which I have not done, that any kind of deduction can be viewed as a thing. Now, let's think about it, is you look at information as a thing. Information contains something. So in logic, you start with some information and you deduce. As you deduce, you propagate the information. That's really what you do. So if you look at logical deduction, if you look at logical deduction in terms of constraint propagation, it helps. It helps really to understand what's involved. And it suggests various things begin to fall into place. Would you speak louder?
There are two types of data. It's data which will be measured by numbers.
Yes.
It's also quantitative. And we have another qualitative. It cannot be measured by numbers, but explained by words.
By what?
By words, yes. And fuzzy theory is a very impressive instrument for operate with linguistic or verbal estimates, but it's necessary to transform this data in numerical form. What do you think about the next step? How to operate with such information without transformation this data in numerical form?
And that's extended fuzzy logic.
It's necessary to use the numbers.
You see, it's fuzzy logic. At some point you come to numbers. You precipitate membership funding, but then you use numbers to precipitate journalists and so forth. So what happens then is this: if you do not M1 precipitate, then you have extended fuzzy logic. That's what you have. Now in extended fuzzy logic, however, the reason why I didn't mention, because it's a whole big area that is not going to suit, you leave mathematics and you enter what may be called quasi-mathematics. And that's something that it's a big step from mathematical quasi-mathematics. And one example that I use is fuzzy geometry. In fuzzy geometry, you draw with a spray can, you draw figures. You say this is circle, this is straight line, this is two parallel lines, and so forth. And then in that kind of geometry, you cannot prove theorems. Not in fuzzy logic, not in Barbier, not any kind of logic. But you can reason. And that's what I do. I say that every concept is replaced by F concept. F point, F parallelism, F this, F that, and so forth. And then you have a theorem. F theorem, not theorem, F theorem, quasi-theorem. So in quasi-mathematics, you have quasi-theorems, not theorems in classical mathematics, quasi-theorems. They have certain kind of validity, but it is not validity in the usual sense. And so there are many, many situations in the real world where you are forced to do that. You cannot residuate to a point where you can use the machinery of fuzzy logic. It's too complicated. You cannot do it. In which case, you sort of give up and say, I will accept then some form of it like standard fuzzy logic or something like that. So it becomes a new area. New in relation to new fuzzy logic.
Everybody satisfied? Okay, so I agree with Irina that it has been a very nice talk. Nevertheless, I'm a bit disappointed, and I will tell you why. Because when you showed your membership about middle-aged, you have put me definitely out of middle-aged. Why? And a few months ago, when we met and you asked about the situation in my university, I told you that I'm almost retiring. And then you said to me, I don't understand. Because for me, you said, for me you are a baby. And babies do not retire. Yeah? So, how to explain this more or less contradiction? Maybe you will tell me later. Okay, let's thank Oh, okay.
Hi, how are you? Nice to see you. Bye.